Welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited to have Amber here because I've already had the pleasure of speaking with this powerhouse in the past. She had me on her podcast, and I know the conversation is only continuing. So if you haven't, make sure you go check out our episode there because these are the conversations that I've been praying for that continue to grow and evolve and to really be shared because this is how we implement change is by having the courage to speak up on the spaces that are in places of the way that humanity has been running and moving and flowing, and we came here to be part of the solution.
Yes.
So when we have the courage to speak up, when we have the courage to really lead with integrity, to lead with sovereignty, this is how we have the ability to make waves, to set precedent, and to really pave the new path that is going to be supportive for all, really supportive for the evolution of humanity. And so I'm really excited you're here, Amber.
Thank you so much for having me, Sabrina. I honestly feel like we're soul sisters. Like from our conversations, I'm just like, yes, I want to just talk to you for hours because you know how I feel.
We're not alone.
Yes, it's so exciting. So thank you for having me.
And I think that's important to remember too, is that we're not alone,
Oh
you know?
gosh, no.
And so when we have the courage to speak up and to share our stories and to share what's got us here, that's how we infuse more connection. I know we're craving more connection than ever.
Mm.
So I would love for you to share your connection with all of us. Share with us your journey and your story and what's led you to really show up and be a sovereign leader today.
Yeah. And whoever thought my higher self and my soul would sign me up for all these things and to volunteer to come to Earth and be here during the Great Awakening and the, shift into the golden age. But here we are, right, having this conversation. And so for me, from a very young age, I felt very insecure in my body. I always felt really different, but I felt like really sensitive to energy and emotions. I just didn't know it at the time. For me, a really, I guess, pivotal moment was I was 5 and it was my first day on the bus. And I got on the bus and the older boys right away started making fun of me and calling me fat and ugly. And it had I let it have a significant impact on me because I didn't know how to brush off a comment. It was embarrassing. And when you have these complete strangers telling you these things, just like, well, it must be true. And I was very insecure and very shy. I didn't trust, boys or men growing up other than my dad. And I really created a very like connected relationship with food because it was like food always makes me happy. It tastes good. It makes me feel good. And my mom to this day still has a food addiction and I think she will for the rest of her life. But inherently, I took on a lot of those behaviors and just like didn't know that you should be mindful with food or what mindful eating was or what self-love was. I was critical of my body all growing up, started dieting by 10, 11, reading the teen magazines and watching the music videos and the movies and idolizing celebrities, like thinking that that's you could only be lucky if you ended up like one of them one day, not understanding like all of the things that I've learned about all of that in the last couple of years. But it really, all that conditioning just made me so critical of my body. And it's just like, I need a flat stomach. If I can even have the flat stomach and have the perfect
Mhm.
body, I will finally be happy. I'll have love. I'll get like my perfect boyfriend and like have all the money and the fame and like everyone will praise me. And that's really the conditioning that I took on. And that unless I look that way, I was critical of my body. I didn't like my stomach. I didn't like my muscular legs. And like, I just constantly picking myself apart. And so the food addiction really hit hard in my early 20s. And it was after a breakup and I partially just like couldn't eat because I was so emotional. And then I was like, I want to finally like get this perfect body that I had been, you know, envisioning having for my whole life. And I started losing weight really fast because I wasn't hungry and I was over exercising, got that quote unquote body that I wanted, wasn't happy, was more critical, felt very arrogant and ego based. And my cycle disappeared and it was starting to get harder to attain. And so it's like one day a switch just flipped. I went to a barbecue, I had a piece of ice cream cake, and it was just like this full blown binge for the first time happened, where I like took half the chocolate and items on the counter, went in the bathroom and just like ate it all and was so full. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Now I need to go to the gym tomorrow and like work out even harder. And that's what started a very vicious cycle of binge eating, dieting, and restriction, and
Mhm.
actually a period of about 6 months where I was binging and purging, but luckily was able to stop and understand the lack of responsibility that I wasn't willing to take at the time. And so I gained about 60, 70 pounds in 4 months. And now it's the heaviest I'd ever been, and was just absolutely embarrassed and mortified. And the binge eating like that went on for about a year. And for me, my low point was really a night where I had just finished a binge and I was just like laying on the couch, so upset, really concerned, thinking if I keep doing this, I don't know if I'll hit 30. I don't know, because I'm being so destructive to my body. The binging and the restriction and the over exercise and the negative self talk and all the processed food is just, I'm so bloated. I'm in so much pain. I'm, carrying all this extra weight. I don't feel well. I'm isolating at home. I don't want to see anyone. I don't want anyone to judge me. And it really was just like a painful moment on all levels. And
Mm.
so I thought, well, I'm going to try and figure this out. So I might as well have one last, cookie. So I always threw the food in the garbage after a binge and went into the kitchen, went into my little blue garbage can in my apartment, and I grabbed out those cookies and I ate them. And it just, oh, it was such a crushing moment, because I just thought, I just ate out of a garbage can. Who am I? Why the heck is this happening? Like I didn't think my life was going to end up at this point. But why that was so pivotal was because the fear of the unknown of who would I be if I healed and changed all this was blocking me from wanting to do anything about it. So I was allowing for the suffering to keep accumulating. But in that moment, the suffering got bigger than the fear of the unknown. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do or how this is going to look. I just know I can't keep doing this. And it was like, the visual I always share with people is I felt like I was standing on the edge of the Amazon forest with like a little knife, getting ready to like make my own trail through the jungle and having no map and no idea. Um, but that was what I needed to happen to really like wake me up to this, I'm binge eating, I have a food addiction, and to start taking ownership and responsibility that it's not other people's fault that I'm binge eating. It's me, and not knowing how to cope with my emotions and feel my feelings and have healthy ways to cope with stress. So that really woke me up to food and the way food was designed to be addictive, and that sugar is 10 times more addictive than cocaine, and that it excites the same part of the brain as a hard drug, and that it makes us crave more, and it gives us this pleasure response. And as I started to learn about food, I thought, why would they possibly put these ingredients in food items and sell them to the public knowing this? And that really woke me up to the corruption of the food industry. And it honestly made me angry and like frustrated and blew my mind all at the same time, because I thought, how could another human knowingly do this to another human and just like capitalize off of it and be one of the reasons why there's so much issue with cravings and food addiction and health issues and digestive and all this stuff stemming from what we eat. I just could not for the life of me figure that out. But here we are. And then that's what's been happening. And it felt so liberating, though, to understand that food was designed a certain way to make people behave this way. And that's one of the reasons why I couldn't gain any kind of traction with like mindfulness and only having a small amount. So once I understood the refined sugar, and that the casein in the dairy excites the same part of the brain as heroin does, and that's a protein that they put in the dairy, especially in cheese. Because I would start eating cheese and I'm like, how come I can't stop eating cheese? Well, it's the casein that gives the morphine, the heroin high. And same with the gluten, which is the protein they put in wheat, and that it does the same thing. And as I started to learn about the brain chemistry piece and then how it was causing the bloating, the inflammation, I was really inspired to change the way that I cooked and prepared food. And I really immersed myself into finding dairy-free alternatives, gluten-free alternatives. That's something that I needed to do to help me overcome the addiction. And same with cutting out refined sugar. I don't make my clients do that unless they feel like it's just they can't stop and they can't gain control. However, for me, my addiction was just so intensive that I had to, because I would try to have a little bit and then just like completely fall off again. Um, and so it was really, that part was a huge breakthrough, but then I still wanted to binge. And so now I'm binging on like bananas and a jar of nut butter and like eating a whole bag of cashews. And that's when it really hit me that, okay, part of this is the way the food is designed, but I don't know how to take care of myself. I don't know how to cope with stress. I don't really understand what's triggering me, and I don't love myself. I still want to like look that certain way. And that's what started the emotional mental part of the journey, where I started to identify my triggers. I started to take time to do self care. I discovered meditation and yoga and journaling and breathing and reading different books that were just like lighting me up. I started to recognize I was a people pleaser and a perfectionist, and that I had this void that I was trying to fill with food. And that's when I really, really, really wanted to dedicate my time to fill this void and identify my triggers and break the habit of going to food and really love my body. And as that all started to happen, my intuition reignited
Mm,
and my soul connection reignited. And that was scary because I started to feel, and my empath gifts came up, and like having visions and just different things. And so there was this part of me that wanted to suppress, because I'm like, how do I even handle all of this? Right.
the
But
overwhelm can come through. It's like, and then the self-doubt can creep in, especially if you've had that conditioning of self-doubt from a young age.
yeah, yeah, it was big. And so I had to work through that and learn how to like manage being an empath and manage my energy. And like, it's safe to connect with my intuition. It's safe to feel these things. And I also can set boundaries with like taking stuff on from other people in the collective.
Right.
And so as all of that happened, I really filled the void, and I really learned how to love and accept myself and my body and like nurture myself. And it was the most incredible experience, because lo and behold, of course, then I got really inspired to go, if I struggled, how many other people, especially women, are struggling? And it's 90% of the population. And no surprise, because they've wanted to target the divine feminine and the female. Because if you're out of your power and your intuition is suppressed, guess what? You can't, help assist the world. So no wonder they've targeted us with everything that they have. But I needed to go through that to wake up to the first levels of the manipulation and the conditioning, and to also really connect with myself. And then from there, started my business, and have had it for 8 years now, and have been supporting women all over the world to overcome their self-sabotage with food, break the diet addictions, the exercise addiction, learn how to love themselves, and then also address the hormone and gut issues and the cravings and the blood sugar and the symptoms that come along with the self-sabotage. And it's been so fulfilling. And I have to share with you, the one thing that I still didn't really get until last year was like, but why is it 90% of the female population? Like, I don't understand why they would target it. And then I woke up to like the mockingbird and like all of the, manipulation and the brainwashing, and how it was specifically designed, to come into our subconscious at such a young age. And that it's in our faces everywhere, and that it was all done on purpose. And so that really helped me like get that last piece of the puzzle with the conditioning and like Hollywood and celebrities and like all of the corruption and stuff. And it's just been so great to put it all together, and then to like teach and help my clients understand, because then they go, oh my gosh, like, it's not me, it wasn't my fault, like I literally have been targeted since I was brought into this world.
Your whole time you've been talking, I've just been holding back tears. Um, because you're not alone. I've had the same journey in a way. And it's been like crying right now. It's been really wild to see what's going on. And the first thing that really came to mind when you were talking about, because even when I was on your podcast, I was talking about looking at like, all the teen magazines
Mhm.
and all of that. We were conditioned at a young age through music, their music videos, and watching like them over sexualize girls like
Mhm.
Britney Spears, like
Mm.
Christina Aguilera, like
Mhm.
whatever, the list of female young singers that were just coming out in the late 90s, early 2000s, and over sexualizing the 16-year-old girls
Mhm.
that we were like very similar in age to those girls. And then that's where a lot of major body shaming really came through.
Mhm.
And so to me, what I was hearing when you were sharing that is that they were targeting young girls at that age of our generation of millennials because they knew that our generation was going to be here to be the ones to shake shit up.
Mm.
So if they could have started the conditioning at an early age of the manipulation of the grooming in a way
Mhm.
to hate themselves, to shame themselves, to belittle themselves, then they wouldn't be, it'd be harder for them to find themselves in their own power.
Yep. 100%.
And that was a huge piece of my struggle already, navigating through depression, navigating through lots of death, and then shaming myself for my body, being the thick girl, and eating. And my family, I come from two generations of restaurateurs. My family owned a restaurant. My dad has like, he's a chef, but I can see how he eats.
Mhm.
And because he grew up poor, so just there's a lot of the scarcity in that sense as well that
Mm.
can go through the scarcity of like believing an opportunity is going to be presented to you, so I'm just going to hide here and shut
Yeah.
that down. Or the scarcity of believing like you're not going to find the right jobs or the right friends or the opportunities because of the way you look. And if I'm already looking like this, like what's going to allow me to really get to that place? Like there's no hope in
Yep.
that sense. I know that was a lot of my journey and a
Mhm.
lot of my challenges. And like we were talking about before, because we're all being asked to step up and lead, all of these insecurities and doubts are creeping up so that we can alchemize.
Yep.
And when I had my recent memory loss, I remember you sent me a message like, how is it with your gut? And I've had gut health issues my whole life with candida, and I've had parasite issues and things like that. And it has been in a lot of our food. Now today, like I only buy produce or cheese from the farmer's market.
Mhm.
Like I'm being discerning on what I'm consuming.
Yeah.
But we grew up around like fast food, and they've groomed these children at a young age. Like I remember, when Beanie Babies were a big thing in McDonald's, they had all the Beanie
Mhm.
Babies. When there was like 101 Dalmatians movie came out, can you try to collect all 101 Dalmatians?
Yeah.
Like that, there were like ornaments. The way that we were groomed at a young age around food, around processed food, because of the reward that you would get for eating this processed food
Yeah.
in a way. And then it's fucked up with so many of our bodies. But luckily now we've learned to detox, we've learned to clear out, but not everyone has that privilege. And they're
Yeah.
targeting more of these lower income people of color
Mhm.
who don't have the privilege or the financial ability to invest in organic food. And that's what I was thinking about yesterday. I was like, isn't it sad that like we have to label our food organic?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like that to me is just so painful. And I'm grateful that more farmer markets and places and people are starting to grow their own food again.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah.
This is how we reclaim our power back from these mega companies that really don't have our best interest. They all work together. And that's been the really challenging thing about what's been going on in the past year. Like
Mhm.
the whole world's been shut down. We're slowly coming back, but there's still fragments. How much of that money that they've put into getting jabbed have they actually put into talking about healthy eating? They won't, because they're all in cahoots together.
Mhm. Yep.
One benefits from this company, it's like it's a dark web of corporation greed, and they really don't care about your health, because if you're healthy, they don't make money off of
Yeah.
you. Plain
Yep.
and simple. I recently got my brain scans, and they wanted to inject into me this heavy metal so that they could highlight my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the company that made this heavy metal, who is also Bayer, a pharmaceutical
Mm-hmm.
company that is also working with Monsanto. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, do you really think they care about my health? And I declined it. And at that point, it was the definition of sovereignty for me at that point,
Mm-hmm.
medical sovereignty, that I got to honor my body, my choice.
Yeah.
And that's how I've been learning to love my body lately. With what's going on in the world, my body, my choice.
Mm-hmm.
Do not shame me into injecting something into me
Yeah.
that I don't know what the hell it is. My body, my choice. Why is that expression okay for abortions, but it isn't okay for other
Mm-hmm.
medical choices?
Yeah.
So when I went to my neurologist and I saw my brain scan, which is healthy, I asked him, I said they wanted to inject me with, um, something to see more so my brain. And he said, you don't need it. They make $600 every time they inject it into a
Yeah.
person. So if we can continue to start having more of these conversations around food, around medicine, around overall health and well-being, the things that we need to live. This is how I'm like purging as I say this. This is how we revolutionize the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's by sharing stories of people who had the courage to shake shit up and be that sacred disruptor and say it ends with me,
Mm-hmm.
who allow their life's mission to be centered around their experience, where, like you, like me, we put the pieces together
Yeah.
and see what's going on, and we choose to be the solution.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's, you have to process it when you're going through it because there's so many emotions around, like, knowing these companies have been purposefully doing this for years and that this was the plan all along. And as we know, the light has won and the light is winning. It's just like when you're waking up to all these things and going like, wow, there's suppressed cures, there's technology we don't have access to, cancer doesn't need to exist, illness doesn't need to exist. They're purposefully injecting these metals into people, telling them you need this to see, your brain properly. Yeah, go eat like this fast food, go eat these completely processed foods that are calcifying your pineal gland so that your third eye, you don't have access to it, which of course is what they've wanted. But there's a period of like anger that you have to go through because it is absolutely infuriating to have not given your consent and have, you know, gone through different things where your body's been through different experiences. You've eaten certain foods, there's certain toxins in the air that are purposely, being put there. And it's, once you get through the anger and you take a step back and you understand that, like, wow, my higher self and my soul literally like volunteered for me to be here. I was picked amongst like trillions of souls to be on earth to help with this ascension and this, learn to love myself. That's one of the main reasons we come to earth, is to learn how to love ourselves. And so that, coming more into that spiritual energetic aspect, really helped me to make more peace with like the third dimensional like stuff and the companies and the people who are not, good people, who have been involved in all of this for a very long time, the bloodlines for 26 years who have been, leading all of this. And when you step more into the spiritual, which you have to go through the physical, emotional, mental to get there, it's so freeing because now I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. We're totally here to shake shit up. We're totally here to set the standard, to assist, to lead, to wake people up, to support people to this connection and understanding. And what's so interesting is I will share certain things with people and then they'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't believe this at all. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, Starbucks isn't trying to poison me on purpose and like make me infertile. Right. And I'm like, fair enough. Like, every time you
Do
drink their coffee,
you?
you get brain fog,
Yeah.
you don't feel well. And the same person that that created Starbucks also has massive shares in Monsanto, but like, whatever, love and light to you. But it's just so interesting how people really don't believe that anyone would never not have their greatest good in mind. There's too much trust, external trust, and not enough internal trust.
Hmm. Amen. And it's interesting because that's part of the the deprogramming and the learning. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have a hard time deprogramming themselves because they still would carry shame. Like, how did I allow myself to believe that was true?
Hmm.
And so they just don't even look at it because they'd rather bypass it than admit accordingly and reclaim
Yeah.
their power in those areas.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are afraid to look because they know if they do, it's going to completely up level their lives and a lot of the things maybe that they've left in the closet, right? And they're going to have to face those things.
I mean,
And
I hear you. It's a thing.
yeah, and everyone's where they need to be, right? It's not like I'm here and like you need to get here. It's loving people where they're at. However, you know, if we really want to gain freedom and find more peace within right now while the external world like breaks everything from its foundation, we do have to be willing to go inside and do our deeper work. And it has its ups and downs. It's not just a straight walk to the top. Like I failed dozens of times trying to overcome emotional eating and being triggered again, and like the negative self-talk, and like it you don't just, oh, I want to overcome emotional eating, so today I'm going to like be aware of every trigger I have and just stop doing it. It doesn't work like that. And you deny yourself of a learning if you think you're just going to get there really fast.
It's a journey and it didn't happen overnight, so it's not going to change overnight.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a good thing.
And a lot of that can also be passed down generationally.
Oh, big time. Like I come from 5 generations of lack, hoarder mentality, food addicts, right? Because when my great grandparents came here from Europe, they had nothing. And then they started to build up things, and then famine came or whatever came, and like they kept losing everything over and over again. So it's so interesting to see, yeah, the generational, the lineage and how that comes in. And then not only that, but then you discover past life stuff. And most of my past lives on this earth, I've either been starving, I've been a faster, I struggled with body image. I had to wear like those corset things,
Mhm.
right? Like, and I couldn't marry the person I wanted to marry. Like everything was so forced and controlled. And it's like, no wonder I came back this time to like really, really, really step into my power. So yeah, that plays a role too.
Yeah, and I think that's why those of us that have, I don't know, I've been studying like indigo children since I was like 16. I was always aware of it. I was always fascinated by it. And that's when I started getting the breadcrumbs as to my work here,
Mhm.
recognizing the sensitivity, but like really stepping into it when I started recognizing and seeing what was going on. And at the beginning, it was very overwhelming. It
Mhm.
was very difficult, especially because I was under psychedelic state of mind and I wasn't ready for it, but maybe I was. And then having my nervous system shocked after I was struck by lightning and finding and strengthening that by doing that deeper work and transmuting a lot of the fight or flight freeze because we can flee away from the things that we are faced by.
Mhm.
But until we look at that, transmute it, and alchemize it, we're not going to be able to have the space to up a level to the next version of ourselves and to embark on the next steps of our journey.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
so that's why we need to make sure that we're doing this deeper work. That's why we need to make sure that we have the support system around us because we're going into the depth of our soul, but we're carving out in our souls, we're carving out that space for so much more beauty to come in.
Mhm.
And that's something to remember. That's something to celebrate. That's something to look forward to because it doesn't all have to be gloom and doom and weary. Of course, there's going to be a massive purge. There will be the ascension path. If you're choosing to be on the ascension path, it's not love and light. They're a crock of shit if they're telling you it's all love and light and good vibes only.
Yeah.
It's about facing the conditioning, the manipulation, the mind control, the generational trauma, karma, um, facing it, purging it out, assimilating to the next version of you through the integration.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about stepping into this new identity. It's all about embodying these new habits, these new ways of being. And again, this shit doesn't happen overnight. If you are choosing to be on the ascension path, of course, it's going to be an accelerated journey. And so, because you're choosing to be on this accelerated timeline, on this accelerated journey, it's going to hit you. It's going to bitch slap you time and time again. But when you get through the other side, it's worth it because it's you activating a legacy that is worthwhile, that's meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can start to put the pieces together of your journey, what you've been able to overcome, what you've been able to alchemize, this is how you activate your legacy, because you having the courage to speak up, to share with confidence, with conviction, knowing you are safe to express who you are.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you move the masses with your medicine.
Yeah.
And so I want to hear more about what you're doing through body freedom and a lot of the work that's really moving you and fueling you and your bigger sacred why right now.
Yeah. So for me, it's really, really, I'm finding I'm attracting women who are just like craving deeper connection with their intuition, with their soul. Like, yes, they want to regulate their hormones and gut health and overcome, the food addiction and the emotional eating, but they're just like, I feel so sensitive. I feel like I'm on my own. I feel like there's so much going on and I don't know how to navigate it. I feel like I'm feeling everything. How do I manage this? And that's fueling the emotional eating because then they're just shoving it down, right? And they're realizing that I want to learn how to cope with this so that when if the external world goes into chaos or upheaval, I can still stand strong in my power and have peace. And so for me, it's really about first, helping them understand why they're triggered. And then it's really about helping them, learn how to have a mindful relationship with food of balance, which means I'm nourishing my body with really beautiful foods. And of course, I'm going to give myself permission to have, mindful indulgence, but it takes time to build that. And then as they do that and they start to reconnect with themselves, they want to spend time taking care of their minds and their bodies and their souls. They discover that intuition and the empath gifts that are actually, very powerful once we learn how to navigate them. Teaching them how to manage energy and clear energy and have a beautiful energy hygiene routine. Like I clear energy every day. It's so important for me. There's all kinds of non-benevolent things floating around that can stick into our field. And so learning how to navigate that is so important. And so teaching these tools and supporting these women who have just their ego's been so in control for so long, their whole lives, right? Helping them to learn how to take their power back from it is everything, because once you learn that you have an ego and it's not the true you, and that you can step into your power, life completely changes. And so you can thrive right now amongst, the up level and the great awakening. You can manifest what you want. It doesn't have to be a struggle. Like I constantly am just hearing people say like, oh, there's just so much going on and it's such a struggle and it's so hard. And like, I have compassion for the people who are going through that. However, I'm also seeing, witnessing, and personally experiencing thriving, growth, expansion, joy, bliss, like things I have never experienced at this level before because of the connection and the work and the choosing to go, no, I'm not giving my power away to that. I'm keeping my power and I'm going to keep leveling up and going to the next frequency and the next vibe, and it feels so good to be there. And so I want to bring as many women along with me that I can who want that as well. And so as I help them, their pineal decalcifies, they start waking up, and it's just absolutely incredible to witness people going, "Oh my god, what the hell's been going on in the world for the last X years? I can't believe it." However, I really see it now. And when people do that and take their power back, they vote with their dollars, they stand in their sovereignty, they say, I do not consent, right? My body, my choice, all of this shifts. And then it's great because you start to see all these big companies either having to change their ways or hopefully just go out of business, and all these, farm to table, people growing their own food, gardens, farmers markets, all the stuff you're talking about. Like, I really foresee part of this fifth dimension that we're going to is that everyone has a garden in their backyard. Everyone knows how to grow their own food. Everyone knows the name of every fruit and vegetable, right? And having that power and not relying on all these external sources all the time to get everything we need. Um, so I see, shifts like that happening. And I think it's so important for us to come back to ourselves and come back to nature and really understand like that the earth Gaia created everything here that we would need, right? Everything that we would need. And so when we claim our power, we really can use it in every area of our life, right? And so that's really where I'm at right now and where I'm going. And like I said, I want to help bring as many women along as I can, because it's just empowering to be here, and we all are worthy to have it. We all deserve to create it. And we have to be willing to do the deeper work and walk through the mud and the junk to get there. But it's the most fulfilling thing you'll ever do.
Ain't that the truth? And I just want to make a correction with that, because if we have just 5D isn't a destination, okay? And that's the other thing that we need to remember too. That will become our new baseline.
Mm-hmm.
And from that space, we can continue to accelerate higher.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of a conversation that's been going around that isn't said enough, is because people think like, oh, once I'll get to 5D, then I'll be
Well, isn't
free.
it a choice? Because I kind of feel like I'm there already because
Yeah,
I'm
well,
choosing it.
yeah. And so I just like, we are living in a multi-dimensional universe.
Yeah.
And for us to be in our full sovereign embodiment, it's not just embodying 5DU, because then you're actually trapping yourself on what else can be experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been part of the conditioning that's also been going around in the spiritual community of like,
Right.
oh, once I get to 5D, then I'll be free. No, you won't, because there's a lot of pieces of the fifth dimension that are actually fallen as well,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where we were going. But then because more people are doing the work, we're becoming even able to tap into higher dimensions of who we are.
Yeah.
So
Makes
I
sense.
always say like 5D is the new baseline, and it's not a destination, it's part of the journey. It's like a checkpoint is the way that
Mm-hmm.
I think of it. But if you're just allowing yourself to limit yourself in that space as well, then you're limiting your full sovereign potential
Mm-hmm.
in a
Yeah.
way as well. Because, there are 12 plus dimensions too. And so that's something that
Oh
I
yeah.
like to remind people as well, is like, why would you just stop at 5D?
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And we're getting a lot of assistance from beings in the 12th, 17th, 20th plus dimension, right? I think you're right. It's definitely something that the spiritual community, some of them are constantly talking about, and it does put you in a box again. Um, I think that it's really important to more so look at like the aspects of like the joy, the peace, the love, the unity, the awareness, the connection, and perhaps focus on creating more of that. Um, because it's incredible to create those feelings inside of yourself and know that you can actually sit in that a lot. That yes, you're going to have your times where you have different emotions come up, but I've never felt so much able to create those feelings on my own.
Yeah. And this is the thing. We will experience unity in our world when we give ourselves to permission to unify within ourselves
Mm-hmm.
first.
Yeah, it's all about us doing our work.
And so you need to unify with that like little boy, little girl within you that was shamed or bullied. You need to unify with that voice and that is telling you to believe in yourself. You need to unify
Mm-hmm.
with your inner knowing, your innate wisdom, your truth. And when the sooner you give yourself permission to embody that, to be in that, you'll start recognizing that in the world. And once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. So, with that, you'll be tested,
Mm-hmm.
because these darker forces will throw at you in the world of like pain and trauma and situations and stories and entertainment that will be like your invitation to be like, is this actually true?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this part of like a Hollywood skit, in a way?
Mhm.
And so I know for me, it's important to be discerning on the news, on how much I read, what I read about, and how I react
Mhm.
to what's going on. And I think that's the bigger piece right now as well. How are you going to react
Mhm.
to what's happening?
Yep. 100%.
And so if you can see what's happening, go into that hawk perspective and not be like dragged with it. And from this place, look down, look over it, and be like, okay, how am I going to swoop in and bring the solution?
Mhm.
Or be up here and invite everyone else to meet me up here.
Yep.
And I think that's the important piece of it, is because if you are here to be in leadership as well and in mentorship, you're not going down to meet them where they are. You can be honest and aware of where they are. I see you, I've been there, but I want you to meet me up here.
Yeah.
And that's true leadership can come when you give that person that you are leading or who you're guiding the opportunity to be self realized and in their power.
Mhm.
Like that's part of the complex that we're also healing, is the rescuer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
All
so
I
many
can
of us are looking outside of us because we still don't have that relationship within
Mm.
ourselves, or those doubts and those insecurities. And that can be coming to me when I hear the doubts and the insecurities. I'm finding that between like the ages of like 16 and 22. It's so much of what the old chakra system of like the solar plexus was. It
Mhm.
was because we're all that shifting as well as we're continuing to accelerate. Our energy is shifting. We're tapping into higher and alchemizing these outdated energy portals within us.
Yeah.
They're evolving because once you've cleared it out, it's whole. um, but if you can find where those places are, where your power is, and go back and start to rewrite those stories, those limiting beliefs, those doubts, and those insecurities, and recognize that you had to go through that not only to step into your power and to have a deeper sense of wisdom, but to also, with that wisdom, how are you going to help guide the collective of someone who maybe where you once were, maybe you're just
Mhm.
like a step behind you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's about sharing and helping them build awareness, and at the end of the day, it's up to them what they decide to do with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it's so important to be in that state of like, I'm here to share, and I'm not here to like rescue, and I'm not here to try and control the way your journey unfolds, and like being in that space of inviting people and like letting the rest be, and going, hey, if you want to come calibrate to this space that I'm in, I would love to, but to not be like, oh my god, like I need to save all these people, because if I don't save these people, well then like not what's going to change on the earth or whatever. Like it's really just settling into that trust. And this year has really taught me how to really deeply like surrender into such trust. And it's so powerful when you do that. Bit of
Mm-hmm.
blind faith too, but the trust is just one of the most freeing things you can feel.
Yeah, and I remember I was asked when I was at my rock bottom, where is your faith?
Mm-hmm.
It brings me tears to my eyes. I'm definitely like
Mm.
starting my cycle soon.
That's okay. It's
But
also been the
it's,
Schumann resonance has been
yeah,
super.
I've been so emotional.
Mm.
And that's the question, is where's your faith? And you have to have trust in yourself. And a
Mm.
lot of the times the binge eating is because you don't trust that you're capable
Yeah.
of where you're going. So you stuff yourself with shit that will lower your energy.
Yep. Yeah, because when we're doing it, like who wants to eat broccoli? Like it's always usually some kind of more processed food. Um, and then our vibration drops, and then it lowers our energy, like you said. And then we have all these cravings that, fuel us. And you talked about, the candida earlier, and that is such a way to just have the energy be so scattered in our field. and we all have these things to address. But it's so interesting how all of the common physical symptoms that have been created by these companies and the foods and the frequencies emitted from the television, etc., how they target candida and create candida. But yet when you go to the doctor and say, oh, I've got candida, they're like, no, that doesn't mean anything. That makes no sense. That's not a thing. Right. And so it's like the medical system like was purposefully created to like downplay all of these what are very common chronic things that if we don't address them will really impact our frequency and our vibration and like all these different things, right? So it's interesting, and I just think it's so important for us to like give ourselves permission to explore these things and to take our time with it because it can get overwhelming, but to understand that like the more courage and bravery you have to deal with the physical, deal with the ego, deal with the candida, deal with your hormones, deal with emotional eating, it's all just brings you to this deeper connection with yourself. And you realize, wow, my body is resilient, my body can heal, right? I've just been in the way by accident. I didn't know. We're taught that as you age, like you just decline, like all the conditioning, right? But our bodies are always trying to heal and they're so resilient and so powerful. We're just getting in the way.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. And with what's going on, I think it's important to make sure you're drinking good quality water, make sure you're doing parasite flushes, you're doing candida cleanses, you're clearing out the muck, you can do like coffee enemas. And of course, we're not doctors here, but there are things that you can use
Mm-hmm.
and do to clean out your system, to rehydrate your organs. I know for me, I've been really devoted again on drinking my celery juice first thing in the morning and making sure I also have my hot water with lemon and ginger when I start my day.
Mm-hmm.
And those little things can help hydrate from within
Mm-hmm.
and nourish from within. And like I said, been going through an array of medical issues for especially since the lightning accident and pieces like that. But after losing my memory in March and going through all these tests and things, and they're being like, oh, you're healthy, everything's
Mm-hmm.
fine. And I'm like, then where's my memory?
Mm-hmm.
I know I've tapped into something bigger, and there's a deeper thing happening that my body is so in tune with, and she wants me to hear what's going on, how can I step up, and what it will take for me to accelerate and to share my message, my
Mm-hmm.
voice further. How can I slow down so that I'm showing up with my game face on every day? How can I speak up, lead, teach, and inspire other people to shake shit up in their own lives, whether it be through their business, whether it be through their relationships, whether it be through their everyday interactions. And it's really fun when I go out into the default world and people are talking to me about like how sick they got and from certain injections. Let's
Mm-hmm.
keep it at that. And then they want a response from me and I have none.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
need to, there's no badge of honor here other than I'm choosing to be in my own medical sovereignty of what's going on. That's my badge of honor. And that's also part of the test. I knew 2021 was going to be the year of disclosure. I said that. I was like one of the last like IGTVs I did in December. I said, mark my word, 2021 will be the year of disclosure. And it's a blessing. And it's important to connect with community that sees it the way that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I wanted to create this space. This is why I'm very discerning on who I bring on as a guest. This is why I get emails every day of like, oh, I've got a guest for you, and I'm like, I don't resonate with this person. I don't want that. I don't know. Thank you, and that's
Yeah.
fine. We have the choices of who we get to surround ourselves with, And I'm grateful that Amber, I feel like you're like on a mission with me
Yep.
in a way. And that feels really good to know that because I'm giving myself permission to speak my truth, I am magnetizing people my way that are also speaking and living their truth. And this is how we are going to implement and realize the real shifts.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel the same way. And it is so refreshing to connect with other women who get it and who are working on their own stuff, but really on the same page. And I think it's so important that we really, really, really have gratitude for the connections and the communities that are being created from this, because it is so nice to have it at this point.
Yeah, it's just again, I keep saying the lone wolf days are over and
Mhm.
you don't, and I think many of us like grew up very isolated and alone, and
Mm,
that's why we had emotional eating issues in the
yeah.
past because that was our comfort, and that's it's if it's triggering the parts of the brain that make you feel like supported and seen and safe in a way, of course.
Mhm.
And the majority of us that are like, I don't know, I'm just speaking from my own experience, but the women I've been connecting to lately all have very similar journeys and are more aware of their empathic gifts, are more discerning, and are leading the way. So I thank you for being one of them. And like I said, it's just really refreshing to hear more and more people do it because it's like, okay, it's like confirmation, like we really are winning.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And thank you for doing what you're doing too. It's so important. And it is just proof that the good is happening. It just takes time to materialize into the physical.
It takes time to acclimate,
Yeah.
and if we are on these accelerated timelines where we're like seeing ahead, it's going to take longer for majority of the world to catch up because there could still be a lot of the miasma and the gunk and the
Hmm.
deceit and the layers, calcified pineal glands, what have you.
Yeah.
So that's where the patience comes through. And while you're being patient, stay optimistic. And while you're being patient, continue to nourish yourself. And while you're being patient, be compassionate because we're all navigating through this journey on our own divine time.
Hmm.
And even though time is your most precious resource because it's the only limited resource we really have, how are you choosing to make the most of it?
Yeah.
And we can use this time here on earth to implement the change, and we can make the most of it by speaking up, by with conviction, by sharing our truth, by sharing our stories, by sharing our research, by
Hmm.
sharing what we've learned, our experiences, our trials, our errors, through vulnerability and
Yeah.
through authentic realness. And that's again like the beacon of hope and where my faith is for humanity. And to wrap it up, I just want to ask a quick little lightning round questions. This has been a really, really powerful and beautiful conversation. I'm always sad when the good ones have to come to an end. But I'm grateful for what has been. What would you say to younger Amber?
I would say don't sweat the small stuff. Don't let what anyone says impact you or make you question who you are. And you're going to have a freaking kick ass life. So get ready for the ride.
I love it. What animal totem has been guiding you lately?
Definitely the bear.
Mm,
I think it's maybe got something to do with like what is the gentle yet like majestic, fierce.
hmm. You
I
guys have a lot
feel
of
that.
gentle heart.
Mm.
Definitely. What does sovereignty mean to you?
It means claiming my freedom and saying like it's up to me. It's not up to you. It's up to me. And I think that that is just everything. It disconnects me from the matrix and the illusion.
Mm, hell yeah. And where can we find more of you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website at amberproof.ca. I have my story there and an emotional eating quiz that people can take if they wonder if they are struggling. If anyone is like, oh my gosh, like I really want to, claim this food and body freedom, I offer a 30-minute complimentary call to connect and chat. And then my podcast is called the No Sugarcoating Podcast, which of course we will be sharing your episode as well, which I'm pumped about. And I'm on Instagram, and it's my name, Amber Romaniuk, Romaniuk.
Amazing. And what last little nugget of wisdom would you want to be sharing?
Uh, I just think that it's so important if you're in this struggle, try not to be embarrassed, try not to feel shame. It's all happening for a reason. Everyone is worthy to gain this freedom, optimal health, connection with self. It's just we're all meant to do it as at a certain time and for it to take the time that it needs to take. So allow that on your journey. Don't give up on yourself. Champion yourself. You will get there. If I can do it, you can do it. Everyone is worthy.
Here for it. Thank you, Amber, so much for going there with me today and holding that space when I'm like crying and being emotional and feeling that for the collective,
Yeah.
because this is what we're transmuting and
Mhm.
really alchemizing right now and together
Yeah.
and within ourselves. So I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be seeing more of you soon. Take care.